Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. How can I take your order?
We'd be sipping on that rig juice.
That would explain a lot.
I'm more smarter.
You're something.
Wine for real people. What's going on?
We're doing Alsace, the
No,
region of
Alsace.
it's Alsace?
Yeah, the C comes after the S,
I never remember that ever.
unfortunately.
It's true. So this is Alsace. It's so small. It's over here. Here, hold
So
on.
very, very small.
I'll get a little. Oh my God, what is happening? We'll get a little annotation.
Here we go. Big boy annotation.
Alsace. It's Alsace. It's the most, what is that? Easterly region in France. It borders Germany, and we'll see that it has a lot of Germanic influence. Given that at one point it was owned and ruled by Germany. So Alsace is extremely diverse, one, in its natural geography, two, its geology, three, its grape varieties and wine styles that it can be producing. So we'll have dry to sweet, and we'll also have some sparkling options as well.
So when we talk about Alsatian wine, the classifications are pretty easy. There are two main ones, and that's Alsace AOC. That's the vast majority of wine production in Alsace. It'll be labeled as Alsace AOC. If you see something called Alsace Grand Cru on your bottle, you will know that it is one of 50 vineyards with a Grand Cru classification, and they got to produce the noble varieties. We'll be touching on this a lot when we continue this video. So the noble varieties then are being Riesling, Muscat, Gewürztraminer, and Pinot Gris. And as such, if your label says Alsace Grand Cru, it must also say your vineyard name, your vintage, and the varietal.
Mm-hmm. So we'll also have two other labeling terms that sort of encapsulate the rest of what an Alsatian wine producer might put on their label. There could be what is it?
Vendange tardifs.
Vendange tardifs, or VT for the layman. Essentially just is translated to late harvest or tardy harvest. So this is going to be a harvest of grapes that you're going to pick maybe closer to October, November, or even December, depending on the weather of that year. If your grapes can hang on until December, then you might want to choose as a winemaker to pick at that point. But most of the all of the production of VT wine is going to be made with the noble grape varieties, like we mentioned before, those four: Muscat, Riesling, Gewürz, and Pinot Gris. And they have to have a specific minimum sugar ripeness level. Given that they're going to be late harvest, the sugar is going to have a chance to increase, either making for a higher alcohol wine, a fuller bodied wine, or a wine with more residual sugars after fermentation. And then we'll get into SGN wine, or
Sélection de Grain Noble. So this also must be made with one of the four noble grape varieties. And as such, just like VT wine, it must have a certain minimum sugar ripeness. But then again, this sugar ripeness must be higher than the requirement of a VT wine. This is actually achieved through botrytis, and it's not produced every year. And it counts for a very small amount of production. So you're not really going to see this in your average wine store or on your wine list. But if you do, it's going to demand quite a high price.
Right. I think I was doing some price searches just the other day, and
it's like $800, right?
For a 375 milliliter bottle, 800. And that was, I believe, in 2007. So the scarcity of the production makes leads the price to go higher, given that the supply is a lot lower. So we're going to move on to the Alsatian natural factors. Our climate is going to be cool to moderate, like we saw when we actually looked at the map of France. Alsace is very landlocked. There's the Rhine. That's the closest river near the actual region. So there's not much influence coming from the Rhine itself, but we're looking at, like I said, cool to moderate continental climate. And our really big moderating influence isn't coming from an ocean body or a water body. It's coming from mountains. So the Vosges Mountains are what's going to be our major moderating influence. They're going to provide shelter from wind. They're going to provide shelter from rain. They're going to provide a little bit of a rain shadow as well. And it also allows for drier autumns so that the picking season isn't too moist, and nice sunny summers so that grapes are able to grow and thrive and get ready for that autumn harvest.
So as such, the best vineyards are on the steepest of slopes. These slopes will be east or southeast facing.
Yep, some nice slopes for you.
Look at the slopes. And the more northern the vineyard, the less protection from these mountains and the cooler the climate you'll get as a result. And the vineyards of lower quality will exist on the foothills near the Rhine. And that's mainly Cremant de Alsace production, which is Alsatian sparkling wine production. A high amount of geological complexity is within the soil, allowing for a wide variety of wine styles, and your harvest can pretty much vary depending on style. Like we said, if you want to do, let's say that Cremant d'Alsace, that sparkling wine, you'd want to harvest in August. But if you're looking for the late harvest, like we said, like November, December harvest.
Yeah, so VT and SNG in that November to December range. So we briefly touched on slopes and plains. So I have this picture just to illustrate. This is from Alsace. So we have these nice rolling foothills coming from the Vosges, and nice, pardon me, not foothills, but mountain ranges coming from the Vosges. So some nice altitude and some nice aspect here, as well as this part of the vineyard, the village area that's going to be on the plains. So advantages of having your vineyards on the slopes, not necessarily advantages, but this might be what you have as a winemaker. You're going to want to have your vines trained fairly low to make sure that they're absorbing the maximum amount of heat that they're getting from the sun. You're going to want your rows oriented in a way that maximizes your sunlight absorption. So you're really playing into that aspect depending on what direction you're facing. You want to make sure that your rows are oriented in a way that no vines are getting blocked off from sun. You want to make sure everyone has an equal opportunity. And since you're on a place with latitude and aspect, you're going to want to hand harvest. Not even want, you're going to have to hand harvest. Machine harvesting isn't going to be an option for someone planting on a slope. And that brings us to our plain vineyards, or our vineyards on more flat lands, perhaps on the foothills or something like that. We're going to have higher trained vines, and this is done to avoid the spring frost. So bringing it up allows more circulation of air and allows a little bit more sunlight to be captured. Organic and biodynamic practices are in the region of Alsace as a whole, not necessarily just to the plains and the foothills, a little bit more common than other wine regions like Bordeaux and Burgundy and the Loire, perhaps. So we're going to see a little bit more biodynamic and organic agriculture because of these natural factors, given that it's a little bit drier, given that the Vosges Mountains give it a little bit of protection. There's lower disease pressure from things like powdery mildew and phylloxera, and it's nice and sunny and dry so that grapes are able to thrive a little bit more.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about the winemaking practices of Alsace. Like we said, here are our noble varieties popping up once again. Let's start with Riesling. It is one of the most widely planted grapes in Alsace. Rieslings from Alsace are going to be medium to full body, dry with medium alcohol, with high acidity with notes of stone fruit and citrus. The textbook says that, as a comparison note, Alsatian Rieslings are not as floral as German Rieslings.
Good note. Good note. Then we'll talk about our second noble variety, Muscat. This is going to be a little bit more intense on the nose. Think a little bit of rose water, rose hips, and orange blossom. It's going to have a light to medium body with a medium to low acidity level. We'll move on to Gewürztraminer, one of my favorites. An Alsatian Gewürztraminer is going to be very rich. It's almost going to be to the point where it has the body of, it gives you a little bit of an oily sensation on the mouth because the body is so full. And this is actually going to be a higher alcohol expression of Gewürztraminer, with around 14% ABV not being uncommon for Alsatian Gewürz. And the acidity level is going to be just like Muscat, medium to low.
Finally, our Pinot Gris. or Pinot Grigio if you're in Italy, but we're speaking French, so we say Pinot Gris.
Oh, mon Dieu.
Pinot Gris is going to be full-bodied with high alcohol, with moderate acidity, excuse me, and notes of fresh and dried fruit and like a honey characteristic.
So then we'll talk about some winemaking practices that an Alsatian winemaker might want to choose. Malolactic is not very common in Alsace, and frankly is not very encouraged by winemaking villages and the government, but there might be some instances where MLF might be used, because we'll see mostly that we want to preserve our acidity in our Alsatian grapes, especially our noble varieties. We're using a lot of stainless steel, and when we are using oak, it's old oak and it's large format oak. So we're thinking 500 and 1,000 liters, just very large. And the purpose isn't necessarily to impart oak flavor, because you're not using new oak, so you're not getting much of that flavor. You're just getting a light bit of oxidation, and you're getting just a little bit more. You get a little bit more complexity in your wine, as opposed to aging in stainless. So wines are ready to drink, but many are capable of bottle aging. Think of our, cremants. We're not going to age those for too long. A lot of these wines, if they don't have that acidity, if they don't have that body and that sugar content, as well as the alcohol, they might not have the fortitude to be able to age for a long period of time. But say our SGN wines might be able to hang around for a couple decades.
All right. There are other grapes that are grown in Alsace. Go figure. We're starting with Pinot Blanc. This is mainly grown for sparkling wine production. But as a still wine, it's known to be non-aromatic, simple, and refreshing. Another grape, Sauvignon, used to be widely planted in Alsace, but now it is not really widely planted as such. So it's described as delicately perfumed and considered very rich. And finally, big guy, the only black grape allowed in Alsace is Pinot Noir, one of my favorite grapes. And when making comparison between like a Burgundian Pinot Noir, Alsatian Pinot Noir typically lacks the concentration, leading to almost like a rosy red in color.
That's
Oh mon
Alsace.
Dieu, the notes est finis.
Another day of France.
Oh boy.
How exciting. How exciting. Well, Alsace is fairly interesting, but also on the shorter side. So we will leave you with that, real people.
Yeah, keep it real, guys.
Keep it French.
Are we keeping it French? I don't know if I want to keep things French.
Honestly, might not be the best idea, but French people, let us know your thoughts.
What?
Or don't.
No.
Ciao.
See ya.